Okay, hi everyone, and it's our short class today, so we want to make sure we have enough time for the debate since you wrote paragraphs on the debate topic. And so let's start off today by going to the debate topic as the introduction to the material we want to cover. And so I want to make sure that I'm at the right Zoom spot here, and I'm trying to organize my screen so that I can finish up saving the previous video. So please don't be shy about turning on your video so we can all see each other. That would feel like we're in a classroom. Particularly if you're going to speak to everybody, people should be able to see you. That's just the way the world's going to be in the future. I don't think we're ever going to go back to the way things were before the pandemic. We're always going to be doing Zoom conferencing. And so you should get used to appearing on screen. And besides, it's I think a more easier for us to interact with each other if we can actually see each other, and rather than just be a name, a bunch of letters in a box. So okay, so yeah, and now let's go back and look at the debate topic. And the debate topic is screen, and the debate topic. Oh, before I forget, yes, of course I would forget that we need to do the attendance. And so the attendance number is 568. 568 is your attendance number for today's class. So 568, and let me go back to the chat and put that in the chat box, 568, and there you see the number. And then we go back to the debate topic, and the debate topic is for the week. That's not the debate topic. There is the debate topic. I think you can see this. I have to make sure because I don't know if this is actually showing me what I want to show here. So let me just reduce that and use that. Okay, here's the debate topic. So, to South Koreans, the Trump administration accelerated America's relative decline in world influence. That's the debate topic. And let me share screen again and go there. And so what I want to do now is divide you up into, how about 4 groups? And room 1 and 2 will be pro, and room 3 and 4 will be con. No. Sorry, let me step back a moment. That's not how I'll let you choose which groups you want to be in. So we'll have 4 breakout rooms, and I'll let you choose which group you want to join. And so I create the group rooms here, and room 1 pro on the debate topic. Room 2 is pro on the debate topic. And room 3 is con on the debate topic. And room 4 is con on the debate topic. So let's have 2 or 3 people in each group, okay? So please join one of the groups according to what your paragraph was that you submitted before yesterday. You each wrote a paragraph, right? So you wrote a pro or con paragraph. And so I selected letting you choose which one to join. So please join one of those groups. Okay, well, then let me ask you, I'm wondering if that really works. So Sally, Tung-Hun, Kang Sung-Hun, which, are you pro or con?
I'm con.
Okay, I'll assign you, okay, well, what about the T-Man, are you pro or con?
I am pro.
Okay, so I'll assign you here. And Anais Moose, are you pro or con?
I am pro.
And so I'll put you in group 2. Well, I'll put you in group 1 actually. Okay, and then Gilles, are you pro or con?
I'm pro as well.
Okay, so then I will assign Gilles here. Do-hee, are you pro or con?
I'm con.
Okay, then I will sign you here to con. And Alisa Chilinik, are you pro or con?
I'm pro.
Okay, I will sign you here. And Ho Kyung Chun, are you pro or con?
I'm pro.
Oh, everybody's gonna be pro. Oh no. So I'll put you here. And Nikita Skripnik, are you pro or con?
I'm pro as well.
Oh, okay. I'll assign you here. And Eugene Kim, are you pro or con?
Con.
Huh?
Con.
Okay. So we'll put you here. Eugene Kim. Okay. And Sally, are you pro or con?
I'm con.
Oh, okay. Is there anybody else? I think that's everybody. So I'll put you here on, so I only have 3 rooms. So con is in room 3, and let me see if I can just delete this room. Okay, yeah, so we only have 3 rooms. So the first person will speak for the group listed on the breakout rooms. I think you can see the breakout rooms. Can you see them? Not yet. Okay, so join the groups. Please join the assigned rooms you're in. Please join. I think you have to join them. You've been assigned, now you have to join them. And that's Ido He join room 3, and Gilles join room 2. Okay, Gilles is in. Ido He join room 3. And can you all hear me? You can't hear me. What a broadcast message to all. I will flip a coin. His head's Admiral Lee. First person enlisted in the group, in each group will speak. Speak first. It's tails. It's tails. So I'll flip again. It's tails. So the third person. Okay. Can you all hear me? Can you all hear me when I'm speaking? Can you hear me? I don't know if you can, you're on your breakout rooms. Okay, so communicate with each other to help your first speaker make a presentation, make a statement. And I should write a statement as well. And I will. Okay, so you're all back now. And so let me ask you, do you want me to make personally assign a role for me? Am I pro or con? Anybody have a preference for me to be pro or con?
Whatever you want to be.
Okay, I'll flip a coin. If it's heads, I'm pro. If I'm tails, I'm con. And it's heads, so I am pro. Okay, so let's now hear your opening statement. So who will speak first? Room 1, room 2, or room 3? And flip a coin. If it's heads, it's room 1, and it's room 1. So Hyo Kyung-chon, please read your opening statement. Make your opening statement as to why you think the Trump administration accelerated America's relative decline. Hyo Kyung-chon.
Okay, we have three evidence information why Trump and administration declined the world influence, because firstly, the country should be united to have an influence about the world.
Yeah.
But Trump administration divided the USA. And secondly, the country should be respected by all country leaders. But as you can see, it wasn't. And thirdly, I think the world influence is coming from the money, but because of the China-US trade war, its economy was worsened.
Okay. So let's so you're saying that's an interesting point. You mentioned it because the country is more polarized and divided inside the United States, that this has undermined America's power and influence in the outside world, outside the United States. Because why? Why? Can you explain?
Well, we believe that it had to come from within. So first, you have to show that you are a world influence and that you are a dominant player in the market, and you can only do this by working together. And we saw due to Trump that the divided people, the people divided even more into groups, being the pro-Trumpers and the con-Trump. Well, the people who are pro-Trump, the people who are con-Trump, and so it's mainly from there on that we think all people should look the same way if you want to be such a big player as it was before. Like there have been presidents in the past where really people surrounded them around him.
Turn on your video, T-Man. Turn on your video so we can see you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Well, there have been presidents in the past where really the people stood around him and really loved him, and they all really believed what he said.
That's an interesting point. And I, one of the reasons I like to teach is because I learn new things all the time when I do this. And I think that's an interesting point, that basically if you appear divided inside your country, then it weakens what we call the mobilization base of your government in terms of its relative power. If your people are divided, it looks like it's more difficult to mobilize them to have power instruments, to create the power instruments for more influence in international relations. Right? Yeah, so that's one of the ways of understanding polarization, and that might be, and that is an interesting concept because I've talked a bit about Hans Morgenthau here in this class and who he was, and I'll talk more about him later. And he had some important points to make. I want to make sure that I share the screen here, and I don't know where everybody went. Just a second. Okay, so share screen, and so you can see here Hans Morgenthau said, the danger a countries face is from overextension. that we talked about imperialist and status quo powers. He had certain principles that he recommended that countries adopt. That thou shalt not overextend international relations. There has to be a balance of power among the great powers between China and Russia, United States, European Union, India. You should not also underextend. Your people expect you as the leader of your country to assert and play an important role in international affairs as the representation of the nation, to make the people feel proud about being Russian or Chinese or Japanese or American or French or German. So you have to play an active role as the leader of your government in extending the influence of France or Japan or Russia or China or United States. You can't be a wimp, because if you're a wimp, your people will punish you and get rid of you, perhaps through defeat an election, or a coup d'etat will remove you. Somehow they get rid of you if you're underextending your country's influence. But you also should not overextend. In other words, attempt to do too much and like invade Afghanistan and create a country there, a pro-American regime, when the Soviets failed 20 years ago, 40 years ago, and when the British failed in the 19th century. America is going to do it, right? And they didn't do it. And if you overextend, your people will become unhappy inside your country in terms of all the money that's being spent, all the resources being devoted to this overextension, and there'll be arguments and conflict within the country. This is the point I think I've learned over the last couple of weeks from talking with you, that you should not overextend. Means if you overextend, that manifestation that will show up will be increasing internal political conflict and polarization within the nation state. That's how overextension manifests itself. And that leads to the election of people like Donald Trump, right? This bizarre reaction of the American public to the rise of political Islam. And, and that's an important point to keep in mind. Political Islam is a creation of the Cold War. It's a reaction of Muslim nationalists against both the Soviet Union and the United States, dominating them since the end of World War II. And when the Americans opposed secular leaders that emerged in the 1950s in the Middle East, in Jordan, in Syria, in Iraq, who were talking about socialism and transformation in these former countries that were formerly part of the British and French Empire, Iraq, Syria, and the Americans overthrew them. In the Arab countries and in Iran, which of course is not Arab, they overthrew Mohammad Mossadegh, a democratically elected secular Iranian nationalists. And as a result, the reaction was the rise of political Islam, including against the Soviet regime in Afghanistan, the Soviets installed in the 1970s, in the name of communism. Political Islam says, a pox on both your houses, to quote Shakespeare. The point is, this has led to increasing so-called terrorism and a reaction to the United States getting attacked on September 11, 2001. It invades Afghanistan and invades Iraq. And this great overextension leads to reaction of Americans to these wars and resources being devoted that leads to more chaos inside the home country, including polarization. So I just want to say in that time remaining, I want to thank you for helping me develop my ideas in this regard about what was Hans Morgenthau mean? Thou shalt not overextend. What happens if you overextend? How do you know if you overextend? Overextend means if you're the leader, because Hans Morgenthau was focusing upon these leaders. Leaders are supposed to understand their people. They're supposed to understand their people better than those people understand themselves. Because people don't really know fully clearly what they want. They want their country to be an important actor in the world, but they also don't want to spend too much money and resources on being a powerful actor in the world. So there has to be a balance. And you should know what your sphere, natural sphere of influence should be, according to Hans Morgenthau. Okay, the Americans, obviously Central America should be within, and Latin America should be in America's sphere of influence. But Vietnam, because Morgenthau was writing during the Vietnam War, that's outside of America's sphere of influence. America was bound to fail there. Now, I'm not saying I agree with Morgenthau, right? because the world is different with nuclear weapons and economic interdependency and the like. But I think that highlights your point that the America's foreign ventures has contributed to the rise of people like Donald Trump, who talks about the world of Islamic Muslim terrorists and Islam is an enemy of the United States and scares a lot of Americans and mobilizes a lot of Americans and makes Americans react against America's involvement, even against its friends. It leads to domestic chaos. Well, chaos is a strong word. Domestic polarization and decreasing mobilization base to mobilize the people. So I've been thinking about that since we met last week, and I've been playing with that and developing that idea in my own thinking. So thank you. All right, so back to, and then finally, thou shalt not allow a lesser power to make policy for you. If you are committed to a small country as your ally, if you are declining in power, you should recognize you're declining in power relative to China or whomever, and then you might need to change the boundary, the border of your sphere of influence, because yeah, okay, maybe Taiwan can be an American sphere of influence in 1950, but in 2020 or 2021, China's gotten awfully more powerful, and maybe Taiwan is no longer necessarily part of America's sphere of influence. Or let's take a more direct example, South Korea. South Korea is awfully close to China. China was a poor, poverty-stricken country when it went to war with the United States in 1950. So 71 years later, China's not so poor and poverty-stricken. Does that mean that South Korea arguably belongs now, has shifted from the American sphere of influence to the Chinese? And the Americans should recognize that, because if they don't, they risk overextending. And it's not easy because, of course, the South Koreans and the Taiwanese and the Israelis are appealing to the American people and the American government. We're a democracy. We love America. We are standing for America. You must support us, America. Don't let the tail wag the dog. Don't let the tail wag the dog. But that's what happens because people get sentimental, right? So, but anyway, just to go back to the exercise, and that leads to, okay, so Khan, who's going to speak for Khan? So Eugene Kim, you were chosen to speak for Khan first. What is your statement, Eugene Kim?
Well, we didn't have much time to share each other's ideas, so I think I can just speak what I thought and other people can share. So I think like about the trade area, since Donald Trump rejected globalization, and he also rejected the transatlantic trade and investment partnership. So, and also he did the protective trade. He increased the protective trade in world. So I think those trade systems just influence other countries, like, for example, like China. It affected the relationship with China, in a negative way. Yeah,
you know, I see your argument. I mean, you know, China's response is they're too big, they're too prosperous already, and they're 1/5 of the human race. So they don't need international trade as much as the Europeans do or the Japanese do. That they benefit from international trade, but they have reached a level of development that they can rely upon their internal market capacity to further develop China. Just like the Americans, throughout most of its history, America was involved in trade, but it relied upon America's internal market capacity to develop America into the economic superpower it became. I think even today, I mean, the American gross national product, no more than 10 or 15% depends upon trade, maybe 10, closer to 10. In Germany, it's like half of the gross domestic product of Germany depends upon trade. Trade with France, with China, with the United States, with Italy. And so China, you're claiming that China's claiming that even if Trump does break and the United States does try to break away from being economically interdependent with China, China doesn't need that anymore. It needed that in the past to start this process 40 years ago, but it can do it now without having to rely upon exporting to the United States in order to continue to develop itself. We'll see if that's true. You are claiming that China still needs to be an exporting state to continue to grow and develop. And to some extent, yes, you know, it has its allies in Myanmar and Cambodia. It can, you know, its Belt and Road Initiative could further develop its Central Asia as an export market. We'll see. I thought what you might argue for con was that I was thinking about if I was going to make a con statement that you could make the argument that Trump played an important role in alerting the other Americans and the whole world to the danger of China. Until Trump, everybody was hoping that by China being involved in international trade and commerce, that this would eventually lead to China democratizing the way Korea democratized as it became an exporting country, and Taiwan democratized in the 1980s because of its development, its economic development and industrialization and its globalization, and that something similar would happen to China. And there was some word or concern about that in the Obama administration, the pivot to Asia, but nobody really challenged China's, the American corporate reliance upon China for manufacturing of products that the Americans would import. Trump was the first, or not the first, but the one who really emphasized that China is a danger and acted on it. And even Joe Biden, who is now president for almost a year, less than a year, has not retracted or removed the tariff restrictions and obstacles and competition with China that Trump started. So you could make that argument that Trump, in fact, saved America from this emerging communist totalitarian superpower that's it plans to expand its totalitarian system to other countries because it can't really thrive. I mean, they talk in terms of the Cold War, the way the Americans talked about the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union had to expand communism because if it didn't expand communism, it would be under terrible threat from capitalism and democracy. So it had to expand to just, they talk in these terms today, a number of people do. China has to expand its authoritarian system if it wants to survive and thrive as an authoritarian one-party communist state. That's what they talked 70 years ago in the United States about the Soviet Union, up until the 1980s. And Trump was the first one, you could make the argument, to really emphasize that, and Biden has not changed that. Joe Biden is continuing that. So
could I say something about that?
Yeah, sure.
Well, in my opinion, it could be the right move, but he did it in the wrong way, in my opinion. Because Trump has, during his presidency, he came over as a little bit of a bully. That isn't always the right way to handle diplomacy.
Yeah, that's the claim, that Biden has not removed the tariff barriers and the competition with China, but he's emphasizing more the cooperation with the European allies of the United States, right? To do it with NATO and with the European Union, not insult Angela Merkel and insult, Canada and insult, that we need allies, but we're going to continue to compete with China. And Trump I think everybody in the United States would agree that he was the first president to make that a #1 priority, the need because Democrats and Republicans in the United States and the Congress are all agreed on that China's a threat, which really had not been strong words in US under Obama. And then under George Bush, the war on terrorism was going on, right? And Obama was then preoccupied with Afghanistan and Iraq also. Okay, so we want to go back now to the next group, and that group is Nikita Skripnik. Nikita, you are pro.
Yes.
Please.
Well, a couple of things already have been mentioned between the difficulties between the US and China. But so we were pro because of those reasons, because Korea's export to China decreased by 21%, which is a very big hit for the economy in South Korea. But one thing that is to be mentioned is that Trump was the first US president to sit with North Korea and have talks with South Korean president and the North Korean president back in 2000, I think 17 or 18, I'm not too sure. So that in retrospect is a good thing in the eyes of the South Koreans to decrease the tension between the North and the South. As well as the one thing that I think is very pro towards the decline of world influence is the America First policy that Trump really emphasized on. So he was more emphasizing on nationalism and just retreating from international treaties and withdrawing from international treaties and organizations. I think that really showed that there was a decline during his campaign.
I think so. You're arguing pro.
Yes.
And
because of the America First policy, I think is mainly why I think it's pro, because he emphasized more on America, withdrawing from international treaties, focusing more on his own country than focusing on internationalization. Because of that, I think.
Okay, so then let's have someone from room 3, Khan. Since you're the small group, let's have you speak first. So Donghoon Sally is heads and Lee Do-hee is tails. So I'm going to flip a coin here. And it is tails. So Lee Do-hee, would you like to respond, Nikita? Or Khan, why did Trump not, his America First policy not accelerate America's decline? Turn on your video.
In my opinion, I write down my report.
Where'd you go? We lost Lee Do-hee. Oh no! Come back, Lee Do-hee. Come back. She has clicked the wrong button. Okay, who else is in Khan? Sally.
Okay, his opinion is Trump's policy, such as American First, is oscillated America's relative decline in the world influence. But I don't think that. Oh,
go ahead.
Can I? Yeah,
go ahead.
Okay, but as a ally, as I'm Korean, South Korea is allies of United States. We damaged by Trump's policy because Trump, Trump offered a 5-4 increase in defense contributions. So we are damaged. Yes, that's right. But the influence of United States did not decrease, I think.
Well, I mean, if you're arguing con, I mean, if you were to talk, reference what Nikita highlighted and about the Trump meeting with Kim Jong-un, one might make the argument that there was some talk. I attended a meeting with some foreign ministry presenters a few years ago, and one of the presenters made the point that the North Koreans are intensely nationalistic. They don't have any great love for China. What they are primarily concerned about is maintaining their regime. So if Donald Trump was seeking to maybe try to exploit or shake the foundations of the Korean War that are still in the Cold War, right? That the Americans fought in the Korean War because they thought that Kim Il-sung was an agent of Joseph Stalin, spreading Soviet communist imperialist world empire, starting in the Korean Peninsula by conquering South Korea. The Cold War is over. The Soviet Union is gone for 30 years now. And so maybe Korea could be enticed away from being dominated from the new communist superpower, China, if the Americans show that they're willing to accommodate Korean demands in return for Korean nationalism becoming an autonomous, independent actor that would be able to be autonomous from Japan, China, Russia, and even the United States, whose reason for being in South Korea is the Cold War. So it costs resources, it costs money, and it gives China an excuse to continue to dominate or be concerned about the American influence, because the American has all these military bases on the Asian mainland. So there was some talk about that in the Korean foreign ministry. I don't really know how much faith to put in that. We do know that that for example, at the early 1990s, let me show you something, right? Because this need to avoid overextension means, I think, also requires trying to overcome trying to address or accommodate nationalism. So I wanted to show you something. Here's the South Korean embassy in Australia. And just before I open it up, let me show you this. And I wanted to show you, oh yeah, here. Okay, so let me go back to the share screen and show you this. This is any embassy of South Korea, anywhere that you go to. I mean, they're all served by the same server. This is the South Korean embassy to Australia, right? And look at the bottom here. You see these three special buttons. Dok Island belongs to Korea, not to Japan, right? So you can click on that and they'll tell you all the story about Dok Island. And then you see, and all the Koreans know about this, of course, and this is on all the Korean embassy websites, that it's not this China, it's not the Sea of Japan, it's the East Sea. It's not the Sea of Japan, it should be called the East Sea. And then look here. Well, here you see North Korean nuclear issues, Koguryo. So 30 years ago, when North Korea looked like it might collapse with the end of the Soviet Union and the aid that the Soviet Union was providing to North Korea, there was a terrible famine in North Korea. Hundreds of thousands of people died from famine in North Korea. And at the same time, in the early 1990s, the Chinese Academy of Sciences in communist China declared that Koguryo, and all Koreans know what Koguryo is, that Koguryo is was an ancient Chinese kingdom. So this is a map of Koguryo. And again, I want to make sure you see this. Here is the Wikipedia entry for Koguryo. And all Korean children know about Paeksha and Shilla and Koguryo were the three ancient kingdoms that came together to create what? Chosun Korea. And the Chinese Academy of Sciences declared in the early 1990s that, in fact, Koguryo was a Chinese kingdom, not a Korean kingdom. That this belonged to China. And the reason they were saying that the concern was that they were saying that because they were preparing to invade North Korea to prevent North Korea from reunifying with South Korea when the conditions looked really bad in North Korea. And evidently this has scared the South Koreans so much that now 30 years later, they still have this page up on all the South Korean embassy websites in Australia and United States and New Zealand, everywhere. Okay, so was Donald Trump attempting to appeal to Korean nationalism if a reunified Korea were to become more friendly to United States as opposed to China, because the United States would offer trade and development and not be worried about being dominated by big, what is Korea? What do the Koreans say? Korea is a shrimp between two whales, right? A shrimp between two whales, and those whales are Japan and China. So you could make that argument the United States was attempting to reassert American influence by allying with pan-Korean nationalism or appealing to it to deal with the rise of China and the Soviet Union being gone 30 years ago. But that's simply a hypothesis, okay? And so we're coming close to the end. So who's going to speak next? So we had, go back to room one. Let me see here. Room one or room two is pro. Heads is room one and it's heads. So Anais, what did your pro group have to say? What did you have to argue regarding whether or not Donald Trump accelerated America's decline? You're a pro. Why did you argue pro?
Well, my group already spoke.
Okay, you have anything to add?
No, well, I've talked about the tweet he made on Twitter that had many people from different ages and countries read. So, which is not something usually, like, it shared a lot of things that young people are not usually aware of, that they don't read on the news or watch news. So I think a lot of people couldn't take him seriously, and it diminished the influence of the country.
You know, that's the point. If you think, to go back to the point I was making earlier, and again, thank you very much for these ideas, that Donald Trump is an imagined manifestation or the emergence of American overextension. And so if it has to withdraw or withdraw its borders of its sphere of influence, how does it do it in a wise, effective way? One way would be by which, okay, we're going to withdraw from Korea, but then we want Korea to be reunified and Korea become an autonomous actor that will willingly ally with the United States and defend itself instead of having 30,000 American soldiers there. Let the Koreans spend the resources on their own defense. They already have nuclear weapons in the north, right? They know how to make missiles. We don't need to be there anymore while we're also worried about China becoming more and more powerful in Asia, right? So, and that required some kind of shock to the system. And, you know, you could make the argument that maybe Donald Trump and his administration wasn't the most skillful in carrying out that shock. I mean, they were asking for so much from North Korea. They never compromised. They never said that they demanded that North Korea dismantle its entire nuclear program. And they're not going to do that unless they disintegrate, unless the regime collapses, right? And so the diplomacy never went anywhere. But could it have been done differently? You know, of course, and the South Korean regime is nervous because they don't want to exist under a Kim family regime in the reunified Korea. So, well, we'll see if this goes further. But we only have a few minutes left in the class. So, and let's see if we have another person who wants to speak here. And go back to the Zoom class and breakout room. And Elisa or Gilles. And it's Elisa. What do you have? What was your pro? Do you have a pro statement to add, Elisa?
Yeah, we also said something about the fact that South Korea had to pay more for the military presence within South Korea. Yeah, but I think most things have been said actually. We also said about the fact that Trump keeps on like tweeting, he keeps on bullying and threatening people, and also kind of like, this is a stupid example, but when Parasite won the Oscar for Best Film, he actually like tweeted a whole series of messages how it was ridiculous. So I think that also kind of affected how South Korea looked at Trump as a president and how he made decisions and how he reacted to stuff.
Yeah. Shaking things up. Yeah, I mean, typically, I mean, that's a point made by Hans Morgenthau. When great powers go into relative decline, it's usually an ugly, unpleasant process. Countries do not decline gracefully. Hopefully they decline peacefully, but typically they don't decline peacefully. They fight wars they shouldn't fight. And then they still end up declining relative to other actors. They get humiliated. So has the United States been humiliated in Korea? I mean, in Afghanistan? Will that impact America's perceived commitments in Asia, in Korea and Taiwan, for example? What will Joe Biden use in terms of managing America's relative decline by re-emphasizing more a stronger role for the European Union? I mean, the British and the French are now sending warships to patrol the South China Sea. Lithuania, as we covered in the previous class, little Lithuania in the European Union, in the Eurozone and NATO has de facto recognized Taiwan. Why would they do that unless they thought they had support? Little Lithuania. Risk angering big Beijing. So maybe that's how Joe Biden wants to manage America's relative decline, by emphasizing more multilateral cooperation in dealing with China. And finally, Gilles, you have the last word.
Yes, I was in the pro faction as well. Yeah, most of my arguments were about America becoming afraid of China, and I argued that America was acting like a turtle. When the big bad China was growing and growing stronger, they withdrew into their shell, not caring too much about the outside world. Oh, I think they live a lot on their past glories, and nowadays there's not a lot of like big we need America to save us moments anymore. So they're riding that last wave to it, then it's like almost dead.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting point. Let me think about that in terms of American prestige playing an important role. So in the time remaining, let's do a poll then on and ask you to vote as to whether or not you think the Trump administration accelerated America's relative decline in the world influence. So please vote on this survey. Four more people to vote. We're up to 6. We need 4 more. 3 more. This is how you get participation points. I'll give you participation point if you vote. 2 more. 1 more. And I'm going to close the class. 1 more person. And there we get to 10. Okay, so 7 say pro, 3 say con, and nobody's undecided. Okay, well, that's it for today. Anybody have any comments or final question? If not, I'm going to close the class. See you next week. And I'll communicate with you over the weekend, of course. Bye.
Thank you.